She was sleeping in seat 14A. Peaceful. Still. Just another tired passenger at 36,000 feet. Nobody gave her a second look. Then the captain's voice broke through the silence, shaking, terrified. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are losing control." Her eyes opened. And everything on that plane changed forever. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Her name was Maya Rosen. Seat 14A. Window seat. Small blue blanket pulled up to her chin. The flight from Chicago to London was long. Almost 9 hours. Most passengers were already watching movies or eating their meals. A few were asleep. But Maya had been asleep before the plane even left the ground. The man sitting next to her in 14B was a businessman named David. He glanced at her once when he sat down and thought, "She looks completely exhausted. Poor woman. Must have had a brutal week." The flight attendant named Anna walked down the aisle slowly, checking on passengers. When she reached row 14, she looked at Maya and smiled softly. She decided not to offer her a drink. Some people needed sleep more than orange juice. Nobody on that plane knew anything about Maya Rosen. Nobody knew she had spent 11 years as a commercial airline pilot before taking a break 6 months ago. Nobody knew she had flown over 200 international routes. Nobody knew she had handled 2 engine failures, 1 emergency landing in a storm, and a bird strike that shattered the front windshield at 28,000 feet, and brought every single passenger home safely every single time. Nobody knew any of that. To everyone on Flight 319 that evening, Maya was just a quiet woman sleeping in 14A. And she was fine with that. She had taken this trip to visit her sister in London. It was the first vacation she had taken in almost 2 years. Her doctor had told her 3 months ago, "Maya, you need to rest. Your body is tired. Your mind is tired. Take a break from flying. Go somewhere. Breathe." So here she was. Breathing. Sleeping. Finally letting go of everything for a few hours. The plane cruised smoothly. The stars outside the window were sharp and clear. Everything was calm. For 2 more hours, everything was perfectly fine. Then it wasn't. Deep in the belly of the aircraft, inside the cargo hold, something had been quietly going wrong for the past 90 minutes. A shipping container holding electronic equipment had a battery pack inside it that was never supposed to be on a passenger flight. The paperwork had been wrong. The package had been cleared by mistake. That battery had been heating up slowly. Silently. Invisibly. Until it wasn't silent anymore. At 11:47 p.m., the cargo hold smoke detector screamed. Inside the cockpit, Captain Harris and First Officer Chen were in the middle of a quiet conversation about where to eat when they landed in London. In 1 second, that conversation ended. Every warning light on the instrument panel turned red and amber at the same time. Alarms filled the cockpit with noise. Captain Harris grabbed the controls. His hands moved fast. His eyes moved faster, scanning every display, reading every number. What he saw made his stomach drop. Smoke in the cargo hold. Electrical system warning. Hydraulic pressure dropping. The autopilot had kicked itself off. The plane was starting to drift. He had trained for emergencies. He had done simulator sessions on system failures. But he had never seen 3 major systems fail at the exact same moment. His hands were shaking slightly as he reached for the intercom. His voice came through every speaker on the plane. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We are dealing with a serious situation on board. I need all passengers to remain calm and stay in your seats. Flight attendants, please prepare for emergency procedures immediately." He paused for just 1 second. Then he said the words that changed everything. We are losing control of the aircraft. The cabin exploded. People screamed. A woman near the back burst into tears immediately. A man stood up and was pushed back down by the flight attendant. Children started crying. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling and swung back and forth like pendulums. David in seat 14B grabbed his armrest so hard his knuckles turned white. He looked left, at the woman sleeping beside him. Except she wasn't sleeping anymore. Maya's eyes were open. Not confused. Not panicked. Not looking around the way everyone else was. Her eyes were open and still and focused, the way a surgeon's eyes look the moment they walk into an operating room. She sat up straight. She tilted her head slightly and listened. Not to the screaming. Not to the crying. She was listening to the plane. She could feel it. The vibration through the seat. The way the floor was trembling at a frequency that wasn't right. The slight nose-down angle that most passengers would never notice. The sound of the engines, one of them had a pitch that was just slightly wrong. In 5 seconds, her brain had already built a picture of what was happening. She unbuckled her seat belt. "Ma'am," David started. She was already standing. Anna the flight attendant appeared immediately, arm out, voice firm. "Ma'am, I need you to sit down right now. We are in an emergency." "I'm a pilot," Maya said. Her voice was quiet. Completely calm. "Commercial. 11 years. I need to get to the cockpit." Anna stared at her. "Right now," Maya said. Not rude. Not loud. Just certain. Anna had been a flight attendant for 8 years. In those 8 years, she had learned to read people very well. And the woman standing in front of her was not a panicking passenger pretending to be something she wasn't. This woman was real. Anna stepped aside. Maya moved through the aisle with her feet wide and her hands lightly touching the seat tops on both sides, the way you walk when a floor is moving under you and you've done it 1,000 times before. She reached the cockpit door and knocked 3 times. Hard and fast. "Captain, I'm a commercial pilot. 11 years flying. Open the door." Inside the cockpit, Captain Harris was fighting the yoke. The nose kept wanting to drop. The controls felt thick and slow, like flying through mud. First Officer Chen was running through the emergency checklist, his voice tight and fast. The knock came again. Harris looked at the door camera. He saw a woman. Calm face. Steady eyes. "Let her in," he said. The door opened. Maya stepped in. One glance at the instrument panel and she knew exactly how bad it was. Primary hydraulics, gone. Secondary hydraulics, 18% and dropping. Electrical load shedding on 3 systems. Cargo fire warning still active. The plane was in a slow, uncontrolled descent. Altitude, 29,000 feet and falling. "I'm Maya Rosen," she said. "Tell me your hydraulic status." "Primary is dead," Harris said. His voice was strained. "Secondary is almost gone. I can barely move the controls." "What's your descent rate?" 1,100 feet per minute. "I can't hold the nose up." Maya stepped forward and looked at the throttle position, the trim indicator, the speed. Her mind was moving fast and clean, the way it always moved in an emergency. Fear existed somewhere far back behind a wall. It had no place here right now. "You're fighting it too hard," she said. "You're pulling back on the yoke but the hydraulics can't support that input. You're exhausting the secondary system." Harris looked at her. "Let me show you," she said. "Together. Don't release the yoke. Just ease your pressure. Follow my input." She placed her hands on the co-pilot's controls beside First Officer Chen and began to fly, not with force, but with tiny, careful, precise inputs. Small adjustments. Feeling the aircraft's response. Working with what was left instead of demanding what was gone. Throttle back 5%, she said to Chen. We're too fast for the control authority we have left. Chen did it. Speed brakes, manual lever, pull it halfway. Chen reached for the manual override and pulled. The aircraft shuddered. Then the nose came up, just slightly. Just enough. There, Maya said quietly. Feel that? The aircraft wants to fly. We just have to stop fighting it. Harris felt it through his hands. The yoke was still heavy. But it was responding again. Slightly. Just enough. What's our closest airport? Maya asked. Chen checked. Shannon Airport. Ireland. 40 minutes at current speed. We don't have 40 minutes on secondary hydraulics, Maya said. What's our second option? Belfast. 26 minutes. Get them on the radio. Declare full emergency. We need the longest runway they have and every emergency vehicle on the ground. Chen grabbed the radio. Belfast approach, this is Flight 319, declaring emergency. We have cargo fire, hydraulic failure, and degraded flight controls. We need immediate clearance for emergency landing. Souls on board, 218. The response came back in seconds. Flight 319, you are cleared direct Belfast. Runway 07, length 9,000 feet. Emergency services are rolling. You are our only traffic. For the next 22 minutes, Maya flew. She talked Harris through every input. She explained every decision in simple, clear words, not because he wasn't a good pilot, but because two sets of hands on the controls and two minds thinking through the same problem were better than one. She called for flaps with the manual backup system. She managed the throttles to control descent rate. She kept the wings level using rudder inputs when the ailerons became too stiff to use effectively. At 6,000 feet, the secondary hydraulic system read 0. We're on manual control only now, she said. No panic in her voice. It's going to feel very heavy. Both of us on the yoke from here. Together, Harris said. Together, she agreed. At 2,000 feet, the runway lights of Belfast appeared ahead of them in the darkness. Long and bright and straight. The most beautiful thing Maya had ever seen. At 500 feet, she called for gear down. The alternate extension worked. 3 green lights. At 200 feet, she and Harris pulled back together, both sets of hands on the controls, and the heavy, damaged aircraft flared for landing. The wheels hit the runway hard. The aircraft bounced once. Maya pushed forward on the yoke and kept it on the ground. Harris hit the thrust reversers. Both of them stood on the brakes. The runway end lights came closer. Closer. The plane stopped. 218 people were alive. Outside, fire trucks surrounded the aircraft within seconds. Foam covered the belly. Emergency doors opened. Slides deployed. People poured out into the cold Irish night air, shaking and crying and holding each other. Maya was the last one out of the cockpit. She walked down the emergency slide, stepped onto the wet tarmac, and stood still for a moment. She looked up at the sky. Cold air on her face. Stars above her. The plane behind her steaming gently as the fire crew worked. She exhaled slowly. Captain Harris came and stood beside her. He didn't say anything for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet. I've been flying for 19 years, he said. I've never felt anything like that. Maya looked at him. You kept the plane in the air until I got there, she said. That matters. You saved them, he said simply. Maya shook her head. We saved them. A little boy, maybe 5 years old, ran over from where the paramedics had gathered the passengers. He was still wearing his tiny backpack. He looked up at Maya with huge eyes. "Are you the lady who fixed the plane?" he asked. Maya looked down at him and smiled for the first time since she had woken up. "I just helped a little," she said. "The plane did most of the work." The boy stared at her like she was the most amazing person he had ever seen. Later that night, sitting in the airport terminal wrapped in a foil blanket with a cup of tea going cold in her hands, Maya called her sister. "I'm going to be a little late," she said. Her sister already knew. It was all over the news. "Maya." "I'm fine," Maya said. "Everyone is fine. You were supposed to be resting." Maya laughed. It came out a little tired and a little shaky and completely real. "I know," she said. "I'll rest when I get there. I promise." But as she sat there in that cold terminal, looking out at the aircraft on the tarmac, she knew something had shifted. The 6-month break had been necessary. The rest had been real. But this feeling of having been exactly where she was needed, at exactly the right moment, doing exactly the thing she had spent her life learning to do, this was something else. This was why she flew. Not for the salary. Not for the title. Not for the uniform. For this. For 218 people who got to go home. Maya went back to flying 3 weeks later. She didn't make a big announcement. She just showed up for her first training recertification session, sat down in the simulator, put her hands on the controls, and felt immediately, completely, at home. Her instructor, a retired captain with 30 years of flying behind him, asked her at the end of the session how it felt to be back. Maya thought about a cold runway in Belfast. About a little boy with a backpack. About 2 sets of hands on a yoke in the dark. "It feels right," she said simply. And it did. The best pilot isn't always the one in the left seat. Sometimes she's sleeping in 14A, waiting for the moment she's needed.